Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your midweek roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. And this week we'll be talking about the Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense, as it is our product of the week. So Robin will be talking about it at length, but it's also one of my favourite of the new Arduino Nano boards. We'll also be talking about two new product releases from Nordic Semiconductor. The first being an evaluation kit for the NRF7002 Wi-Fi IC, which is in the Arduino Shield form factor, and the second is the NRF7000, which is a slightly cheaper and simpler to use version of the same chip if you just want very low power Wi-Fi positioning. We have that along with a bunch of other amazing projects on this week's show, and as you may be hearing, I'm trying to speak a little bit slower because I know some of you do not have English as a first language, and I have been very aware for a long time that I speak at almost the speed of light. So I'm trying my best in this show to slow that down a little bit. I hope it helps. Speaking of the show, let's get on with it. Up first this week we're going to be talking about Maxwell James, and he's a name that you may be familiar with because we've featured him on the show before. He is a maker who creates all kinds of weird and wonderful things, notably an instrument that you play with your P, and some of these inventions take a lot of, inventiveness. This isn't an easy thing to do, albeit it's a bit of a strange concept. So there's this side of Maxwell James, there's also, this side of Maxwell James, which I enjoy equally. Now, this project that I want to show you today, however, is definitely the former inventive, fun side of Maxwell James, not the brushing his teeth with a power tool Maxwell James, both of whom I like. But there's something about this Tetris phone case that really appeals to me. This is a 3D printed case with an OLED screen inside it and a few buttons with a resistor chain in order to attach to an Arduino Nano, I believe he used, to turn your phone case into a thing that can play Tetris by itself. Forget playing Tetris on your phone. This is an actual dedicated Tetris for your phone, but not of your phone, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So the video is mostly just Maxwell describing the process of how he put it together, the problems he had with his resistor chain, and his design idea. And the actual idea behind it is something that AJ Russell puts together, and he links the GitHub in his video description. I'm going to just link this because he's put it up on the Electromaker projects page. You can find the projects page here, all the components he used and everything like that, and of course the video itself too, and a link to the GitHub as well. But yes, a phone case that can play Tetris by itself is a wonderful idea. And the fact that he's gone through all of the design iterations to actually make it work and found out that everything from his resistors to anything that could go wrong did go wrong. But in his inimitable style, it is definitely worth watching. And the finished product is, yes, a version of Tetris that you can absolutely play on your phone. As I have pointed out several times, Maxwell's channel is one that is criminally undersubscribed. Do head and give him a follow now, or a subscription as they're called on YouTube, I suppose, because he has been just consistently putting out an insane amount of creative maker-style videos with a slightly unhinged edge for a while. This is the toothbrush I was just showing you, by the way, which literally is, it's just a toothbrush attached to a DeWalt. But he's also made a taser glove, which is of course a standard thing that you should never make, and please don't, but it is very funny, and things like 3D printing his own sandals and then running a mile in them on a treadmill, which as a runner is something that makes my knees cry. I really enjoy Maxwell's style of videos, and if you're looking for an unhinged maker to fill the Michael Reeves hole between the several years it takes for him to upload, Maxwell might just be the next guy. I certainly think his channel is about to undergo rapid expansion. It's just a question of when. This is the Arduino Nano BLE32. The Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense Revision 2, and it is one of my favourite of the new Arduino Nano boards. It is also our product of the week, so you know what that means. We have a full article with our in-house gadget guru Robin, who will be describing it to you in far more engineering terms than my general blabbering and enthusiastic terms. And if you would like to jump straight to the quick and to the point what this thing does and what you can do with it video, you can find that in the description of this one. It is also here on the Electromaker YouTube channel, and there's a written version of it on the blog here on the Electromaker website too. But in short, the Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense is one of my favorite of the new Nano boards, which is interesting because I've noticed that a lot of my favorite boards recently have had the same chip, the Nordic Semiconductor NRF52840, which is a Bluetooth low energy chip with high capabilities. But this board specifically is particularly interesting because of what it has included on it. It comes with a microphone, it comes with an inertial measurement unit, which I think is a 6-axis, or maybe even 9-axis IMU. In fact, why am I guessing when all of this stuff is right here? A 9-axis inertial measurement unit, a digital microphone, a proximity and gesture detection sensor, a barometric pressure sensor, and a temperature and humidity sensor, all just on the board. So this is an IoT project in and of itself. You could program this thing, put it into low power mode, attach it to a battery, and there you do. There you go. You have your sensor, you have your asset tracker, you have your remote sensor that you could place somewhere special. But that's not all. See, this board is specifically well designed for TinyML applications, and that's because it is widely supported, including by people like, for example, Edge Impulse. Yes, Edge Impulse have a dedicated Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense page, and this is where you can find out basically just immediately how to get started with it. And it is a fairly painless process. You basically just need the CLE tool for Edge Impulse and the CLE tool for Arduino, and then you can get going with it rather quickly. This shows you how you can use it with a camera module, but of course you can use whatever kind of sensor data you want. One of the nice things that you could do with this is train it specifically on different sound commands, so it can listen out for certain things. Or you could turn it into a movement sensor, so it can detect when you're moving your hand up and down or from side to side, for example. Or you could train it on different gestures, so you could just hold different fingers up to it and do different things with it. In fact, there was a project not dissimilar to that we featured on this show just a couple of weeks ago. So this is our product of the week, and Robin can take you through everything you need to know about it and will give you a lot more detail than I just have. But of course, this is an Electromaker product of the week, and you know what that means. Yes, we are going to be giving away a wonderful Arduino Nano 33 BLE Sense, not 32, Ian, 33. And it's the same way that we do all of these contests. If you've ever entered an Electromaker contest before, you will know that we've decided quite a long time ago, just to make it completely fair, that they are chosen at random. Anyone who is subscribed to our channel and enters can win. However, we do ask that you leave a little paragraph saying what you would make if you won one of these things, just because it's really interesting to hear people's ideas. What would you do if you had a TinyML equipped Bluetooth low energy board like this one? What would you make out of it? What are your dreams? What would you learn? And also, would you like to document it on the Electromaker website so we can read what you did? And the important thing as well is to leave the hashtag Nano33, that's NANO33, with the hashtag, just so that we can make sure we get all of the entries together and make sure none of those entries are duplicated, and we will be picking a winner for this on next week's show. And just for now, if you'd like to find out more, the Product of the Week article will be linked in the description, and you can find Robin's video there. You can also find a bunch of things in the article, including the kind of projects that you could do with this, including different IoT projects, and as I mentioned, gesture controllers is just right there, but also VR and AR applications, which is something that I hadn't actually thought of. So yes, this will be linked in the description. Just a quick note, if you really do want to support the show, we do have this in stock right now, and everything you buy from the Electromaker store goes directly towards funding, well, more videos like this one. Now might be a nice time to mention as well that the Electromaker YouTube channel has had somewhat of a makeover, and doesn't it look fantastic? This was absolutely not me. I am not a person that can make wonderful things like this, but thank you so much, Ollie, for the hard work that you've done on this. And if you are enjoying what you see on the Electromaker YouTube channel, do subscribe to it. It makes a difference. It doesn't just make it show up in your subscriptions panel, but it makes YouTube know that you want to see this kind of stuff and will maybe recommend it to other people. The same goes for clicking like on whatever video you are watching. That doesn't just tell us that you like it, it tells YouTube too. And finally, a convenience function. If you turn this into a drop-down menu, which is what happens when you are subscribed, you can select all notifications. And up in the top corner here, just when you're on the YouTube website, you will have a number next to the bell here. And that's where you can see, these are the videos that we have been putting up. And they are just the Electromaker Show and things like the Electromaker Educator and the Product of the Week with Robin. We aren't a particularly spammy channel. We don't put up a huge amount of videos unless we are at a conference where we are giving you in-the-moment action on the floor. And that's an exception we make. But for the most part, you will just be getting a few notifications from us. Very useful if you have a huge amount of subscriptions. Anyway, that is it. Let's get on with the rest of the show. Now moving on to Nordic Semiconductor. So they've released a couple of new things, one of which we had actually seen before. This footage is from Embedded World 2023, and the evaluation kit you can see perched on top of one of their development boards is now released. At the time this wasn't released and they said you can film this but just don't talk about it. It's a future thing, it's a secret. But yes, that now exists. It is their NRF7002 evaluation kit, which is an Arduino Shield compatible kit, and it is available right now. There is already a Getting Started guide from Nordic about it, and in short, the NRF7002 is the flagship Wi-Fi chip from Nordic Semiconductor, and we've talked about why that's exciting in the past, but for the very brief explanation, Nordic have been sort of one of the top names in Bluetooth Low Energy for a long time. They put out very capable chips that use an incredibly small amount of power, and that is why they've been adopted across the industry. The NRF7002 is a Wi-Fi 6 chip, and Wi-Fi 6 is the first technology in Wi-Fi that can sort of follow the same route. Using Wi-Fi for positioning in the past wasn't really an option because it used so much more power than other sources. So say you had an object which used cellular and GPS for being out in the wild. It used Bluetooth for connecting in certain ways, but when it was indoors, you wouldn't necessarily be able to find out exactly where it was. This allows you to do that by connecting anonymously to different SSIDs while still giving you all of the options you would need for connecting via Wi-Fi. It can be an access point, it can connect via Wi-Fi, and there's all of that good Wi-Fi 6 stuff like target wait time and a wake time and a million other things that I don't want to go into without researching much more because I just don't know enough about it yet. At some point in the future, that's on the list for an Ian the Noob explains something that only engineers understand, having hopefully researched it. So yes, if you have wanted to get started with Wi-Fi 6 or you want to add Wi-Fi 6 to an existing project, this is the perfect way to do it. It is Arduino pin compatible, so will fit on an Arduino Uno, of course, but they suggest one of the things that might fit it really well is the NRF9160 development kit, because this is their cellular and GPS kit, which comes with a system on chip here, a system in package here that is designed for cellular communication. And if you sort of put those two things together, if you're designing an assets tracker, for example, that would track everything out in the wilds, and then when it got back indoors, it could track it indoors as well. Or if it was out in the wilds and for whatever reason it couldn't get cellular connectivity, it might be able to connect to a local SSID, a local Wi-Fi access point, anonymously just to get its positioning. That's the idea here. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. This thing is something that is already on sale. We have it in stock at our store, as I showed you just before. So if you are interested in getting it, it's only $20. It's a great way of adding Wi-Fi 6 to your project, but it's not the only thing that Nordic have put out. The other thing that Nordic have released is the NRF7000, a slightly pared down version of this NRF7002 IC. And this doesn't give you the rest of the Wi-Fi 6 things that the other one does. You can't use this to connect to a Wi-Fi 6 network, for example. You can't use it as an access point, but this is a cheaper chip that just gives you positioning. And of course, there are a number of advantages in that. If you are designing something which is just an asset tracker, for example, or that is just needs to know its position and then send that position data to the cloud, you might just want to use a cellular connectivity tool, because then all of your information gets sent to the cloud via your cellular connection. When you're outside, you get all of your location data from GPS, and then when you're inside or within range of any Wi-Fi, you get your location data from the NRF7000. It adds an extra dimension to your asset tracking. And again, this is already available. There's already example code just there. This product brief is just from the main page, I believe. Yes, it's just from the main page on the NRF site. As I said, this is the missing link to Nordic's complete SSID-based Wi-Fi locationing system. There's a bunch of great information on it, as always. And as mentioned, this is something that will fit very nicely with the rest of Nordic's stack, but is not exclusive to it. These chips can be integrated with pretty much anything, and there is documentation as to how you can do that too. So if you would like to find out more about either of these things, there will of course be a link in the description of this video, and both of these things are available from us, as previously mentioned. It's a very good way of supporting the show is by buying stuff from the Electromaker store. Just a quick reminder, if you ever see a advert on any one of our videos on YouTube, that money's not going to us. We've never turned monetization on. This is how the Electromaker Show is funded. So yes, both are available now. This chip is just $3.26 to add Wi-Fi 6 locationing to your project, and it's a quite fascinating thing, isn't it? Just the idea that you can have these little SPI-based chips that can talk to absolutely any host MCU and give you a new kind of Wi-Fi that we haven't really had so far. Wi-Fi might be the next thing that gets really super interesting. You know, right now it's cellular and there's been a lot of Bluetooth Low Energy talk, but Wi-Fi might be the next one. And to me, that's kind of exciting. Up next, we're going to be talking about Arduino, because they have brought out an update to the way that their file systems work on the Arduino Pro line of boards. Now, this is a very specific use case, but if you're someone who's working with any of the Arduino Portenta line, so now we have 3 boards in that line. If you remember, the C33 was released earlier this year. That's the cheaper alternative, and then of course the H7, which is the one that everyone knows well, and the slightly more expensive X8, which is their Linux single board computer that's combined with a very powerful STM32 MCU. And all of these things come with things like the Vision Shield, shield, which is what you're seeing in this diagram here. And in fact, this diagram pretty much sums up the entire thing, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. So, as the diagram shows, if you are working with a Vision shield and you're logging things on the microSD card slot on the Vision shield of the Arduino Pro, you may be doing this, or you may be storing data elsewhere one way or another. You are now able to attach to a separate USB host, which can have a thumb drive in it or whatever. I mean, if it's a USB host, this could be a separate SD card drive. Presumably, you could attach a normal hard drive to it as well. And the reason I think you probably could is that this uses, well, there's two versions of it. There's the Arduino POSIX storage library and the Arduino Unified Storage Library. And I haven't looked at the Unified Storage Library yet, but the code for the POSIX library looks very familiar to anyone who has maybe worked, especially in the C programming language and Linux systems. If you've ever even just done in a basic C tutorial, opening a file, writing some data in it and closing that file, this code will look very familiar to you. So the article goes on to say exactly what this can do for you, and it's exactly what it says on the tin, as it were. Simplified storage access, a choice of file systems, whether you want FAT32 or little FS, you have the freedom to choose whatever suits best, and hot plug support as well, so you can detect and manage USB mass storage devices as you plug them in and out, which is very convenient. It says for added convenience, but I would say a large amount of convenience, because then you could theoretically have a sensor way up there on the roof which is logging all of its data, then just run one line down with a USB port down there, and you can just plug a thumb drive in and it will say, oh, there's a thumb drive plugged in, dump all the data onto the thumb drive. And you could check that either with your phone or with a computer that is nearby, but you don't need to get the ladder out, which is always a convenience. Anyway, as always, this article will be linked in the description of the video, and you can find what everything else Arduino has to say about their new library, including some real-world use cases and the code itself down here as well, with 2 links to their GitHub page. And just before we move on, if we have a quick look at the one of the examples, this is the USB no hot plug example, so a simplified example of how to work with a USB drive. And you'll see a lot of things in here that are quite familiar if you've worked with, as I said before, the C programming language and Linux. So you're mounting a USB drive and you're talking about the file system here. Here is your file pointer, which you're probably, again, familiar with if you have worked with the C programming language, and you're printing into the file here, and this is all around it is basically just all of the error checking that you need to do in C, and then, yeah, provided it has worked, you close the file. If it hasn't worked, you close the file, and yeah, it's very, very similar to things that we are probably all familiar with to some extent if we've worked with embedded hardware and C. There's also various examples of the unified storage system. I haven't looked into that quite yet. But if you are working with the Arduino Portenta line professionally, I would be very interested to hear from you. I've had limited hands-on experience with both the C33 and the H7, but this has been fleeting, and it's not something that I've had the time to put into, and they're not boards that I own. And also, it's very interesting that this will all be compatible with both the Opta and the Portenta machine control as well, as these are things that will be finding themselves in industrial environments where, as I've mentioned before, you might be logging a lot of data that is sensitive, so you don't want to lose it if you have an outage, and so you can just plug a USB drive in there every day or every hour to offload whatever is there. And B, it might be somewhere up there, it might be somewhere distant, and just having to run a single USB cable down and plug a drive in might be a good way of running things. So if that is something that you are already involved in, do let me know in the comments. I'd be very interested to hear about it. We're rapidly running out of time for this week's show, but before I go, I wanted to very briefly bring your attention to 2 separate things. One is a Kickstarter, which I think we're all going to be very excited about, and the other is Lua coming to the RP2040 microcontroller. So this is a kit that I imagine most people who watch this show will find exciting. This is a scale model of the Perseverance Rover, but it's not just a model that you build, it's a functional model. It has an AI camera on it, it can move around, it has a remote control, it's all ESP32 based, and it's designed to be programmed at a number of levels. So you can start with block coding with children, right through to programming it in C++ for low-level robotics. And this is something that has been designed from the very get-go as something that is a tool for various ages. Now, you can already see that they wanted 18,000 euros for their goal, and they've got almost 500,000. This Kickstarter has very much taken off, and it is deservedly taken off too. I am not so familiar with GeekClub, but this is a GeekClub and CircuitMess collaboration. And CircuitMess are people we have featured on the show before. I say people, it's one guy who has started, when he was young, started a company to create electronics kits. And in his own words, he has been turning interested people into inventors for a long time. And this is a collaboration between him and GeekClub to make basically a very nice looking rover. I'm going to move away from the official video now just to show you some of the GIFs that are here, because they obviously will repeat and we can see them a lot more. There's the rover itself with the AI camera on the top. You can see it looking around just here. You can see the rover moving and actually doing stuff. And as mentioned, this is all a kit that you put together that has all of the regular kind of hobby servos and a microcontroller and all the stuff you'd expect from a robotics kit, but it is a space-themed one, which I find very exciting. And as you can see here, you can program it using a block coding language. As it says, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. From 11 plus intro to coding using circuit blocks, right up to the Astro Architect Master, who uses Python or C++ to bring their own ideas to life. So, as well as the Perseverance rover itself, there's a few other things that you can get as part of this. The Artemis watch, I think, is a nice idea, and this is what it looks like. It is a pre-built, I believe, watch which is already pre-flashed with some ESP32 code that will mimic the notifications on your smartphone, which is just a nice touch. It's like a pre-smart watch. And you can, of course, reprogram it because it is an ESP32 development board. There are also several different models. So this one comes, I think this one comes already put together and pre-flashed. You basically, oh no, a small screwdriver required for assembly. Okay, so you do assemble this, but you literally just put it together and you have a watch. But if you want something with a little more complexity that maybe isn't as complex as the entire rover kit, they have these wonderful little things like the Juno satellite, which has solar panels on it and LEDs, but is a kit that you have to put together. They also have a version of the Voyager, which again is solar powered with LEDs, and there are a few other of these. The Discovery is quite nice. This is all made from PCBs and again has LEDs in the back here. And there are various different kinds of kit you can, of course, get. So the base kit is only 169 euros, which surprised me. I was expecting it to cost a lot more than that. They've really made it have quite a low price, well, to what I consider low. But of course, there are various different bundles as well. So just to skip down to where we are, there's different versions. The Super Pack, which costs $599, is everything, as far as I can tell. Absolutely everything they are selling. But if you're interested in finding out the separate prices for things, you can get, for example, the Discovery for just 24 euros for being a backer. You get the Discovery kit for that. And the Early Bird Voyager kit is $35. If we start jumping down to things like, oh, I didn't even notice they had the James Webb Telescope. Oh, wow. Okay, I could geek out about space forever. In short, this does look like a wonderful Kickstarter project. I am already familiar with CircuitMess, and he's done some really nice kits in the past. This just seems like a wonderful idea. And again, it's the kind of thing that I can't think of a nicer thing for someone who's already into the hobby, who might be into space-themed stuff, to have this as a present, whether they're an adult or a child. So I thought it was worth putting on the show this week. Yes, if you do end up getting one of these, do let me know how you get on. I would very much love to buy this as a present for somebody, but I don't know if I can justify buying it for myself, and my kids are sadly just a little bit too young. But I am really excited to see some of these out and about in the wild at some point, and I really do hope that this inspires one of you to get into some space-themed building of models. Finally, this week, I'm going to touch upon MicroLua, and I really do mean just to touch upon it, because I don't have much time to talk about it, and there isn't much to talk about as yet. However, if you're a fan of the popular scripting language Lua, and you do like the RP2040 microcontroller that you find on the POTW and many others, then you will probably be interested in MicroLua. As it says, it packages the latest Lua interpreter with bindings for the Pico SDK and a cooperative threading library. This is a one-person passion project who's just doing it because they like Lua and they like the RP2040, and it is still a work in progress. If you'd like to know more about it, head to this GitHub page. There is a link to it in the description, and you can see how to build it, and of course things like how to have blinking lights working in Lua on the RP2040. So if you do that, and I would love to know how you get on, do let me know in the comment section. I like Lua. I'm not great at it, but I've had to use it a little bit because it is the scripting language behind my text editor of choice. NeoVim uses Lua bindings for everything, which is very nice. It means you can make your own build scripts. You can slowly turn NeoVim into Visual Studio Code, which I suppose is entirely besides the point, isn't it? So that was our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for your continued support. I hope this show was a little bit easier to understand for non-native English speakers, or even native English speakers who have trouble understanding a slightly northern, far too enthusiastic person in an attic. It is something that I have been aware of for years. As someone whose job it is to speak to people, I tend to do it a little bit too fast. This is not something I do purposefully, and I've always tried to slow down. And so I genuinely thank you for the reminder to do that. I'll try and continue to do so. If any of you have any comments like that, as in little ways that I could improve the show specifically for you in terms of accessibility, always do let me know. It's something that I'm definitely willing to put the time in to try to make better in general for the show. Anyway, I hope that was interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything from the show this week. Will you be getting the new Nordic Semiconductor Arduino hat? Will you be getting a Nano BLE Sense at any point soon? It certainly is one of my favorite new Arduino boards. What do you think of MicroLua? All of this stuff, please do let me know in the comments. But for now, I hope you have a safe, fun and creative week, and I'll chat to you soon.